13th has long been considered
This
a
time
date
it's what
cursed
happened on
with
Friday
bad
the
luck.
13th.
It's largely been a date that people look at as an excuse to do scary-themed activities like binging scary movies. But this is the first year since 2017 that Friday the 13th falls in October. So for this video, we're looking at some of the most terrifying events that have actually taken place on the notorious day of bad luck. Tupac Shakur, better known as a stage name simply as Tupac, was an American rapper widely considered to be one of the most influential and successful rappers of all time. Tupac was arguably responsible for some of the most memorable rap verses in history. And while much of his notoriety came about after his shocking death in the mid-1990s, he's still remembered and talked about today. On the night of September 7th, 1996, Tupac was in Las Vegas celebrating his business partner's birthday. And one night while there, he attended the Bruce Seldon vs. Mike Tyson boxing match with Suge Knight at the MGM Grand. Later that night at about 11:15 p.m., while at a stoplight, a white four-door Cadillac sedan pulled up to the passenger side of Tupac's vehicle, and an occupant rapidly fired into the car. He was hit 4 times, once in the arm, once in the thigh, and twice in the chest, with one bullet entering his right lung. Tupac succumbed to his injuries 6 days later on September 13th, which was a Friday. The case went unresolved, with people suspecting his friend Suge Knight and even rapper Biggie Smalls of the murder. But recently, on September 29th, 2023, 60-year-old Dwayne Keith Davis was charged in the killing of Tupac. Dwayne is not accused of being the one to pull the trigger that night in Las Vegas, but he is, however, being accused of having been the one to call the hit on Tupac. The trial is still currently in progress. Looking at the Costa Concordia disaster. On Friday the 13th, January 2012, the 8-year-old Costa Cruises ship Costa Concordia just left Civitavecchia, Italy at approximately 7:18 p.m. On board were 1,022 crew members and 3,206 passengers. As the Concordia approached Giglio Island several hours later, it deviated from its standard course, moving closer to the small Tuscan island for a maritime salute, which included the cruise ship sounding its horn to show off to onlookers on the land. The Concordia had performed several in the past, but the area was known for rock outcroppings, and at some point, such a formation was noticed in the ship's path. Francesco Schettino, the captain, ordered a change in course, but allegedly due to language issues, the Indonesian helmsman steered the boat in the opposite direction. It took a little over 10 seconds to correct the maneuver, and the boat's bow ultimately swung clear, but the stern collided with the reef at approximately 9:45 p.m. The damage had been done. The Concordia's port side had suffered a 174-foot tear. This caused the ship to list and then partially sink, landing unevenly on an underwater ledge. Although a 6-hour rescue effort brought most of the passengers ashore, 33 people died, 27 passengers, 5 crew, and later a member of the salvage team. An investigation focused on the shortcomings in the procedures followed by the Concordia's crew and the actions of the captain, Francesco, who left the ship prematurely, leaving behind about 300 passengers on board the sinking ship, most of whom were rescued by helicopters or motorboats in the area. Schettino was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 16 years in prison. Despite receiving criticism, Costa Cruises and its parent company Carnival Corporation didn't face criminal charges. The total cost of the disaster, including victims' compensation, refloating, towing, and scrapping costs, is estimated at $2 billion, more than 3 times the ship's original $612 million construction cost. The cruise line offered compensation to passengers to pay for all damages, including the value of the cruise. Only 1/3 of the survivors took the offer. This remains the biggest modern cruise ship catastrophe. There's bound to be anywhere from 1 to 3 Friday the 13ths each year. If you are superstitious and choose to be more low-key on this inevitable date in an attempt to escape any bad luck, you may end up like Daz Baxter. On Friday the 13th in 1976, Daz decided to just stay in the bed for the day to avoid anything bad happening, only to be killed when the floor of his apartment block collapsed under him. There's countless other stories and examples of misfortune and downright tragedy that's happened on Friday the 13th, but this could be said for literally every other date on the calendar. At the end of the day, maybe it's just another day. approximately 2 years, there was this pop-up haunted house attraction that would open in October. It was unofficially called Haunted Hill House because there was some sign that looked like it was bought from Party City or something that was propped in front by the parking lot, and it said Haunted Hill House. The parking lot wasn't actually a parking lot at all, just grass that was designated as a parking area. This was the year they closed down, and this was the year my friends and I went. I went with Matt, Michael, and Eddie. We went on a Thursday night because we were in college and all of us had Fridays off, so it was definitely quieter than it would have been on a weekend. There was surprisingly no line for the ticket stand, and when we followed the directions to the entrance, there was only a really short line there. I'd say like 4 people ahead of me. What we didn't realize, though, is that they were only letting one person in at a time. We had no idea that was part of this haunted house. If anything, this would make it scarier. We shoved Michael in front to go first. I was second to last before Eddie. Every couple of minutes, they would tell the next person to go in. When Matt went in ahead of me, I actually started to get nervous. I hadn't done a haunted house since I was a little kid and I was with my family. Then it was my turn to go in, as this woman dressed in some bloodied costume opened the door and told me to enter. I stepped through the door, and as it shut behind me, I was in this dark building, lit up mainly by small flashing lights. As I walked through, I was faced with a bunch of gruesome props of mutilated dead corpses and other pretty horrific things. Once in a while, actors dressed in horrific costumes would jump from around corners or through little holes in the walls. And just about every single time they got me because I jumped. I was in some dark hallway separating 2 rooms, when I felt something brush up on me from behind. I let out a short scream as I turned, and in the darkness I could see a tall figure in front of me. I laughed after seeing it, then something I wasn't expecting happened next. The actor started pushing me down this dark hallway. I could hardly see anything. I was going along with it, thinking this was part of the attraction. I don't remember how long exactly I was allowing this actor to push me in the darkness, but eventually he stopped, and I heard a door close, and things went silent. I didn't know what was happening. I still thought this was part of the act, and I was definitely scared because it was pitch black. Then I felt hands grabbing me, but in a very weird way, not in a way that a haunted house actor should. I was being full-on grabbed, so I pushed the person off and said, "Get the fuck off me, dude." I stood there in silence now. I said, "You're going too far, man. You can't touch people like that," thinking this was still just part of the haunted house act. I waited there, expecting the actor to progress me to the next part of the attraction or just do something, but nothing was happening. Enough time passed now that I knew this wasn't right, and so I took out my phone, even though they told us not to take our phones out at any time during the attraction. I turned on the flashlight and found myself in a storage room with props and janitorial equipment. But I'd be lying if I said that was the first thing I noticed. The first thing that caught my attention was the tall man, standing 3 or 4 feet away from me. He didn't look like an actor at all. He wasn't wearing a costume. He was just wearing all black with a black face mask covering half his face. I looked for the door as I said, "What are you doing, dude?" He didn't say anything. He just started making these motions with his arms as if he was acting like he was supposed to be a character. I found the door and left the room. I used my phone flashlight to navigate back down the dark hall the direction we came. When I found the next actor, who yelled at me to turn off my flashlight, I told them I was violated and assaulted by somebody who may or may not work for the attraction, and I wanted to get out of there. I could tell the actor was probably just some teenager not much younger than me, and he didn't know what to do, really. He dropped his character act and told me to just keep walking that way and that I'm almost to the end. I asked where his boss would be. He said I'd have to go back to the ticket stand, as the little manager's office is attached to the ticket stand. So I continued the rest of the haunted house, speed walking, making it clear I was just trying to get out. And a few minutes later, I was out. I found all 3 of my friends, who were confused how I ended up getting out last. I told them what happened, and then we all went to the ticket stand, and I asked for the manager. The worker said that he wasn't there tonight, but that he'd be back tomorrow. I told the worker about what happened, and she said she would alert the team about it. I requested my money back because of it, and she gave me back my 30. It was the next day that a girl from our college, who we all knew, posted on Facebook that she was sexually assaulted by someone in the same haunted house the night before, the night we were also there. This was the reason the place was eventually shut down that month. When I reached out to her on Facebook, it sounded like we had the same exact experience, only the aggressor got a lot more physical with her. She pressed charges on the owner of the attraction for, I'm assuming, negligence. The attraction staff, of course, swore that that man who assaulted the two of us didn't actually work there. I'm sure that's the truth, but I don't understand how they didn't have proper security measures in place to prevent something like this from happening.